This tank here is probably one of the most well-known and most renowned tanks of its time, and even today it's still Britain's main MBT. The Challenger 2 remains as one of Britain's finest tanks produced during the late 20th and early 21st century. As the Cold War showed some increasing tension and rivalry between East and West, the tanks of all major armies needed to be up to date and ready to go into immediate action. At the end of the Second World War, the British had produced the Centurion Mark I, which was a starting point of an extremely successful tank series. The Centurions were gradually upgraded, however in the early 60s were deemed to be obsolete. New tanks were eventually put forward, such as the Vickers MBT and Chieftain. The next tank that Britain would use to defend itself from a Soviet attack was the Chieftain. It was a well-armoured tank featuring a turret with many curves, and showed some resemblance to the Challenger 1, which was going to come later. The Chieftain was a kind of mix between the Challenger 1 and Centurion, however a large part of the tank was a focus on armour. The British had not followed West Germany's idea into making tanks such as the Leopard 1 and other fast and mobile, yet lightly armoured tanks. The Centurions and Chieftains were not the fastest of tanks, both having around 40 km an hour of top speed. The Challenger 1 was almost an accident, having been designed under the guidelines of export versions of the Chieftain. In the late 70s, Iran ordered some Chieftains and were actually quite happy with it. However, there was still one issue: the speed. The top speed of the Chieftain was only 40 km an hour on road. This then became the main driving factor of the improved Chieftain. Several different modifications were made to the Chieftain Mark V, which included 3 different prototypes, also known as the FV4030-1 and FV4030-2, Sheer or Lion. The Sheer 1 was ordered by Jordan and had an improved running gear which was proved to be similar to the Challenger 1. The Sheer 1 was further modified and turned into the Sheer 2. However, the Sheer 2 was cancelled after the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which overthrew the Pahlavi dynasty, and in turn the Shah was exiled. The tank was then further modified by the Royal Ordnance Factory's ROF, and then was christened the Cheviot, and then rechristened as the Challenger 1, and then was accepted into service, and production started in 1983 and finished in late 89. The Challenger 1 needed a replacement, and that came in the form of the Challenger 2. Although the Chally 1 and 2 look quite aesthetically similar, however they are quite different. According to Vickers in their promotional video, they say that only 3% of the parts were all the same. This all started when Vickers Defence Systems, now BAE Systems Land and Armaments, when in 1986 they privately tried to create a tank to replace the Challenger 1. Vickers then completed the designs of the tank and were sent to the MOD, which is the Ministry of Defence. In 1989, £90 million was given to Vickers for a demonstrator, which was then stated by the Secretary of Defence George Younger, and this offer was presented in the House of Commons. In total, 3 different specifications were made, and with 11 different criteria, and then it was finally put to test against the American M1 Abrams and German Leopard 2 in 1991. The MOD then placed an order for 127 MBTs and 13 driver training vehicles costing a whopping £520 million, and then a further order of 259 MBTs, with 9 more driver training vehicles for another £800 million. There was also an additional order by Oman, and with all the tanks added up, comes to a grand total of 446 by the end of 1994. Most tests were carried out for the ISRD, In-Service Reliability Demonstration, in Bovington and Lulworth. More tests were carried out for the ISRD, In-Service Reliability Demonstration, in Bovington and Lulworth. It entered service in 1998 with the 2nd Royal Tank Regiment in Germany. The front of the hull was fitted with a large flat plate which was not curved and was very large. In fact, it was a massive weak spot. There was some armour there, but not enough to stop a TOW 80 GM or an APFS round. This issue was made clear when an incident in 2006 in Iraq, where a tandem-shaped RPG-29 projectile penetrated the lower front plate, so the hull needed to be upgraded. However, this took time. Only until 2016 was this modification introduced, with Dorchester composite armour blocks were added for increased protection. A downside to the extensive modifications Challenger 2 has undergone is that the ERA or explosive reactive armour and Dorchester additional plates are all costing to one thing: speed. With all of its armour being added, it's likely that the tank will become very heavy and slow, with a similar problem that the Centurion and Chieftains face. The Challenger 2F is almost 62.5 tons. That's just under the weight of a King Tiger. Downside to the extensive modifications Challenger 2 has undergone is that the ERA or explosive reactive armor and Dorchester additional plates are all costing to one thing: speed. With all of its armor being added, it's likely that the tank will become very heavy and slow, with a similar problem that the Centurion and Chieftains face. The Challenger 2F is almost 62.5 tons. That's just under the weight of a King Tiger. Another problem with the Challenger 2 is that it uses two-piece ammunition. This means that the charges and projectiles are stored separately and not as one-piece ammunition. The projectiles, mainly HESH and APFSDS, are stored in the turret. HESH rounds are also a form of plastic explosive. It minimizes an explosion during an ammunition mess-up. The lack of blow-up panels, like those on the Leopard 2 and M1 Abrams, do not pose a big problem, as the dangerous charges are placed in protective bins in the hull of the tank. Another problem is that the APFSDS rounds are much shorter than their Western counterparts. The ammunition length in a Challenger 2 is around 60 cm long. However, tanks such as Leopard 2 have around 1 meter long one-piece ammunition. The lack of storage, space and the length of the breech in the Challenger 2 is probably the main reason why penetrator heads of the APFSDS rounds are so short compared to M1 and Leopard 2. Another downside, which has varied debate, is whether the rifled gun is better than a smoothbore gun of the same size. The barrel of a smoothbore gun is much less prone to damage than a rifled barrel, as the small grooves that make the projectile spin are much less prone to damage. However, despite the problems Challenger 2 faces in this modern era, it is still one of the greatest tanks produced, as proven in March 2003 invasion of Iraq. The 7th Armoured Brigade, part of the 1st Armoured Division, was in action around Basura with 120 Challenger 2s, providing additional support for British forces as well as dealing with a small tank threat. Some Iraqi T-54-55s. These T-55s were no match for the Challenger 2's L-30A1 120mm rifled gun firing APFSDS. Sub-problems that had come up 18 months earlier during the second Saif Saria exercise indicated that the Challenger 2 needed to protect its filters and engine from sand and dust. This was similar to the problem that early Spitfires faced in North Africa, as they had no tropical filter for the engine. The need for an upgrade was needed, which would be the CLIP program, Challenger Lethality Improvement Program. The use of two-part ammunition was considered a replacement, and the current L-30A1 rifle gun was replaced with a 120mm Rheinmetall L-55 gun, which was the same used on the Leopard 2A6. Using this new gun and ammunition would mean it would have the same standard ammunition used by NATO, which includes tungsten-based kinetic energy penetrators, which do not have a political or environmental issues about their use, unlike the use of depleted uranium rounds. The production of rifled 120mm ammunition has been closed in the UK for some years, so there is a limit on remaining shells for the L-30A1 gun. In January of 2006, there was a Challenger 2 fitted with the German L-55 gun and underwent trials. The smoothbore L-55 is the same length of a rifled L-30A1 and was fitted with the existing bore excavator, thermal sleeve and muzzle reference system. The single-piece ammunition of the L-55 would mean the existing ammunition storage configuration would have to be changed in order to inhibit the new one-piece rounds. In 2006, a figure of 386 million was estimated for the cost of all British Challenger 2s to be fitted with the German L-55 gun. Some Challenger 2s also have an additional L7A1 GPMG, General Purpose Machine Gun, and also additional MBT protection systems. However, this upgrade was nearly abandoned as the defense budget was reduced in mid-2008. The LEP program, Challenger 2 Life Extension Program, was designed to increase the service length from an established 2025 to 2035. This program originated from July 2013 and reached its initial stage in 2014. However, it is decided that not all of the Challenger 2s would be fitted with the new LEP program, and that the L55 smoothbore gun had been dropped. In October of 2018, a new demonstrator, which was the Black Knight, featured LEP modifications, with modifications for the fire control, commander sights and more. There was also regenerated braking, which could allow for storage of some power and increase space in the turret for turret rotation speed. Several variants have been made of the Challenger 2, which include various roles such as armoured recovery tanks or bridge layers. The Titan bridge layer is based upon the chassis of an original Challenger 2, but is fitted with a Chieftain Armoured Vehicle Launch Bridge CH-AVLB, which can carry a single 26-metre long bridge, or two 12-metre long bridges. The Titan could also be fitted with an additional dozer blade and entered service in 2006. Another modification is the Trojan. This is fitted with a large crane and can have a mounting for a claw to pick up heavy objects, and also can be fitted with a much larger dozer blade. The AVRI, Armoured Vehicle Royal Engineers, can also carry fascines. The export model of the Challenger 2 is the Challenger 2E. It is equipped with a new integrated weapons control system, which includes a gyro-stabilized panoramic Sagem MVS 580 day/night sight for the commander and a Sagem Savan 15 gyro-stabilized sight for the gunner. The power pack has also been replaced with a new 1500 horsepower Euro power pack, with a transverse mounted MTU MT883 diesel engine, which is further connected to the Renec HSWL 295TM automatic transmission. This is the same power pack used on the French Charles Leclerc, which was also delivered to the UAE. There is also a standardized air cooling system optimized for use in the desert. The camouflage used on this tank is called the Berlin Brigade camouflage. It all started when the British Chieftain tanks operating in urban areas in West Germany when their camouflage was inadequate. New camouflage was tested and actually blended in quite well with the surroundings. The distributive camouflage idea was taken from World War II ships, when radar detection had not been massively used and finding targets by sight was the only option. This new camouflage was used on the Challenger 2 in the August of 2017 and went into the service with the Ajax Squadron, based in Salisbury Plain. The Challenger 2's main competitors in a similar role include the American M1A2 Sep Abrams, Leopard 2A6, Indian Argent tank, Ukrainian T-84 and Japanese Type 10, and many more competitors of its era. The Challenger remains as one of the greatest tanks of all times, and probably will be for the next decade. Thank you very much for watching my longest video yet. It has taken a long time to write the script, over 2,000 words, and building the actual tank was not an easy task. If you would kindly leave a like, share or subscribe if you haven't done already. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for next week where we will talk about a French MBT. That's it for today, and as always, stay safe in these difficult times.